Hello there, you are listening to Just Films and That. This is the podcast where we celebrate films we think might be underrated or underseen. My name is Alice Oliver, and for this week, Josh chose Rocky Balboa from 2006. So, let's see what we reckon. Alright then, Josh. Rocky Balboa. Is Rocky Balboa famous Welshman? No, it's not really. The film is from 2006, so spoiler warning, listeners, if you haven't seen it. So, Josh, tell us, what is Rocky Balboa about and why did you pick it?
Before I do, could you say in your best Welsh accent, it ain't over till it's over?
It ain't over till it's over. You know what I mean?
Oh, forget about it.
Was that all right? I feel like my Welsh accent's shit, you know?
Yeah.
Even though I lived there
Which is where you're from. That is where you're from. That's
bad, isn't it?
How can it be bad? What is Rocky Balboa about? Right, so Rocky Balboa is the sixth Rocky film in the Rocky franchise. He's done 5 at this point. And Rocky is now older. He's in his, I think, 60s. He's retired from boxing. He is running a restaurant in Philadelphia where he's from. And then there is a world champion at the time called Mason the Line Dixon. He is sort of struggling to attract people to watch his fights because people don't like his style. People find him interesting and disengaging and all that sort of stuff. And what happens one night is a sports channel, I think it's ESPN, put on like an AI fake fight between them, as has been done before. And they fight, and it shows Rocky wins in his prime. So then what they do is they set up an exhibition match where Rocky, who's in his 60s, fights the heavyweight champion of the world. And it's, you know...
Great
and
idea. That could only end well.
What could possibly go wrong? A man in his physical prime against a man in his 60s. Anyway, that's what it's about. So yes, ridiculous when you think about it. Why have I picked it? Well, do you know what? I think this is one of them where... I originally picked it thinking this will definitely be underrated, this. And I saw the scores and I thought, I'm not sure. But I'm still going with underrated because I still think it's underrated because I really like this film. I have a real soft spot for this film. The reason I picked this one and not another Rocky film is because this is actually the first Rocky film I saw.
Okay.
I went to the pictures to see it with some mates, like you do when you're 15 and it's a Saturday and you just go to pictures and see whatever's on or whatever. And I just remember being really taken in by it and like having this really visceral reaction to it in the cinema, particularly the boxing scenes and stuff. And I'm not particularly bothered on boxing. I'll watch a little bit every now and then, but I won't pretend to be an expert. So I really like this film. I have a lot of nostalgia, a lot of affection for this film. So one of the reasons it's underseen. The other thing, I suppose, in some ways, is I don't think if you weren't a Rocky fan or you weren't a Stallone fan that you would seek this out and watch it on its own because you'd probably think it's a 6-1. I'd have to see the others. And I don't think you have to have seen the others to enjoy this because I hadn't, and I knew. Obviously, I've been back and I've still not seen all the Rockies now. I've seen most of them, but. That might enrich the experience for you, I don't know. But I think you can enjoy this as its own thing. Now, I'm quite nervous about this because I'm wondering if you're going to tear it to absolute pieces. But I don't know. So I suppose the first question before we get into it then is, had you seen any Rocky films before?
Nah, I hadn't seen any Rocky films before. So in the last episode, or the episode leading up to this, obviously you started singing the song. Like da 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 da, and I knew I was like,
that was a gamble, wasn't it? That was a gamble.
Like, he's doing a thing here. He's doing a thing. I was like, but I don't know what the thing is.
Yeah, that was a gamble that didn't really pay off, did it? And I'm doing it thinking she's going to sing along, and you're going, what? What does that mean? What is it you're saying there, boy?
Yeah, exactly. I was clueless. So yeah, hadn't seen any Rockies. I knew obviously Sylvester Stallone was Rocky. I think is that where Eye of the Tiger became like really, really sort of famous song. So I like that. I like that song. So you know.
Yeah, exactly. So you've not seen any Rockies before. So I was sort of counting on that.
Okay, yeah.
Thinking, I wonder if she can prove my point that you can enjoy this without seeing other Rocky films. But anyway, that is why I picked it. And that is what it's about.
Okie dokie then. Well, then let's see. So is this like the first time you'd seen it in a while?
Yeah, it's probably the first time I've seen it in a good few years, definitely 5 years or so.
Were you excited going into it?
I was excited. Yeah, I was excited, but like I said to you, I was also nervous because it is cheesy and it is daft and it is mushy. And I was like, I'm going to come away from this saying, I like it, but critically speaking, it's actually a bit, my nostalgia and my affection carries this film, but actually as a film, it's not
Been
that
there.
great.
Yeah.
Which, like you say, we've both had examples of picking films on that merit and come away sort of critically disappointed, but still with the affection for the film. So, no, I still loved it. To be honest with you,
Yeah, that's cute.
I still
What
loved it.
did you like about it?
So, I mean, overall, there's a few bits. I'd say the first thing is I just think there's a real good feel-good factor to the film, and I think there's a real entertainment value in it. Boxing makes for a great film, doesn't it? It's not like other sports. A lot of other sports are really difficult to film and to make into compelling sports. Like we've said before, when we did The Damned United, there's a lot of shit football films. And boxing is one of those sports. I think the whole idea of it is cinematic. One person against one person, battle until the other one knocks the other one down.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
never
mean?
really thought of that, but you've got a real focal point. Like you're just focusing on the one thing. Like when we've seen things, trying to do American football or basketball, it's like there's quite a lot going on all at once. You're running all up and down like the pitch or the the stadium or whatever it is. But with this, it's very focused, isn't it? So I suppose cinematically, it does make a lot of sense. I hadn't thought about that. That's a good point.
So teams, for me, team sports where loads of people are moving at the same time are hard to make cinematic, and there are the exceptions to the rule, as we know.
Yeah, the Replacements,
there are.
right? I mean,
yeah, I mean not that, but
but
if you watch the Replacements, I think one of the things that we even said when you came on to talk about it was that if you don't know the rules, it's really difficult to know what's going on. And second of all, there's a lot to take in when everyone's moving about. Whereas boxing, it's one person against one person, or like something like. Even something like baseball where there is multiple people, but the whole point is a ball is thrown and hit, and only one person really does the running, or a few people do the running. So it's far easier to follow what is going on than something like football, English football, soccer. Sorry, that's but just to differentiate, or American football. So so I think it's really, really cinematic, and I think that comes through in this. And it's just, it is ridiculous. It is a ridiculous idea that, a man in his 60s would go toe-to-toe with the heavyweight champion of the world at the time. But I still love it. I just think it's cheesy. I love the training montage, which you get in every Rocky film, and it's pretty good in this one.
And I suppose in a way, you could argue definitely that Rocky is a classic, and we still see that happening now, and still using the same music throughout pop culture. So that's something that has definitely lasted.
So I like that. The other thing I quite like as well is I think there's a message in there where, I mean, people might say I'm looking for something because I just like it, but I think there's a decent little message in there about finding purpose after loss. So in it, spoilers if you've not seen it, but in it, Adrienne, who is Rocky's girlfriend and wife.
Adrienne.
Yeah.
See, I don't know why I know that, but I know
that. everyone does. Everyone knows that, right? But so she has died, like in between 5 and 6. She's in. I think she's in 5. She's died. And she's died. And she has died off screen, and they did that they did that on purpose to give Rocky some sort of emotional motivation. Okay. And I think that whole idea of him grieving and trying to find to replace it with something and trying to cope, I think that's quite well done in this film. It is written by Stallone, as most of the Rocky films are. I think it's directed by him as well, so I like that. I think
so, yeah.
Yeah, like the script as well. I think there's, I think it's pretty well paced. I don't think you could argue against that. I think it's, it flies by. It's about 1 hour and 46. There's a couple of interesting little subplots in there as well. Like there's a sort of non-romantic love story between Rocky and another female character, which
who was a child when they met, and then but she kisses him on the lips, and it's all a bit weird.
Yeah, she does, but I don't think he doesn't reciprocate.
He doesn't reciprocate even a little bit.
Yeah,
like
and
he
I
doesn't
think
even pout his lips or anything.
I think that's sort of the point, which is he is still grieving for his wife. He's got no interest in romantic love. But maybe she misreads it. I don't know, but I quite like that there was a non-romantic love story in that sense, or I suppose from Rocky's point of view, there was not
an affection story, almost, isn't it?
And so and then also towards the end, I think it's quite emotional. It does always have always gets me a little bit at the end, and I just think it's well written. I think it's well put together, and overall, I think it's good, solid entertainment. To be honest with you. quite like the way they write. Rocky is obviously he's quite an icon of cinema, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely for sure.
he's
Even as someone who's never seen the films,
Well,
I
like
can
you said, then
understand that.
you know Adrian,
You know all the
you
stuff.
must know the
yeah.
running up the steps and
Absolutely,
all that, all that
absolutely.
sort of stuff. So that speaks for itself. But also, he's a bit of a lovable dope, isn't he? As an actual character, outside of the boxing, like he is quite charming in the way he's a little bit of a dope. There's a bit in it where she's got little Marie's got a son who is mixed race because his father's Jamaican, and she says something to him like, because he doesn't know, he thinks that the other kid he's hanging out with, he's a white kid, is her son. She goes, "Oh no,
with his big Irish
yeah."
hair.
She goes, "No, it's the other one, the mixed race kid."
Yeah.
And she goes, because obviously she's white. She goes, "Oh, his father was Jamaican," and he goes, "Jamaica, European," and it's like, fucking hell. And I can't tell in it if he's meant to be joking or if he's just quite thick.
Yeah.
But no, so overall, I really like it. But what I want to know from your experience with this film is it my affection or is it actually a good film?
So I really wanted to like this, Josh. I really did.
It's not me, it's you. It's not me, it's you.
I've heard so much about Rocky. You know, the legacy is truly lasting, is lasted through the years. And Sylvester Stallone, I know, is an icon. And I know a lot of people have a lot of time for him and a lot of affection for him. I struggle to remember if I've actually seen him in anything. I have seen Demolition Man. He's in that, right?
Yeah, classic. Yeah,
so I've seen him in Demolition Man, but that is the only thing I've seen him in. And there's a lot of things that I've got to say about this film, Josh, and we'll get on to most of them later. But there were things that I did like, and I did find things that I liked. So let's talk about those first.
Okay.
So, I love the way that it looks. So the combination of the camera work, the lighting, the blocking, and the whole aesthetic of it, I thought was quite powerful. And particularly the lighting, which I found very dramatic, especially during external scenes, because they're outside a lot. You've got like these quite sort of iconic looking streets of Philadelphia. Like it feels recognizable, even though I've never been to Philadelphia, but you just kind of felt it and you felt the atmosphere and you felt like you were in it with them.
Yeah, and they do a lot of callbacks as well to other stuff. So that makes it recognizable. Like you say, the where he runs and where he trains and stuff. And I think, like you say, with the lighting, they do a lot of lighting of stuff with the lighting in the room. So rather than using set lights, there's bits where he's lit by like the lights in the gym or the lights. There's a bit where they're outside and he's being lit by a car.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So I think, like you say, it gives it a real, I suppose, it gives him quite a cinematic feel, really. And because I suppose the original Rocky was made in the 70s, it was very much that era of gritty, quite raw feeling films. And I think this definitely, as the Rocky films went on, they definitely got more and more glossy. And then and I think this gets that mix quite right in the way it looks with the glossiness and the grittiness. But anyway, as you were saying.
Yeah, well, actually, just bouncing off that, my other point was that it isn't glamorous and it doesn't feel glamorous. Like the locations all feel very working class and very basic, and like there is struggle all around. At one point, Marie and Rocky are outside her home, and she says something like, "Oh, it's probably been about 20 years since a bus came down here," and it is just like a little throwaway comment, but insinuates that it's like this forgotten about place, like somewhere where the government cares so little about the residents there that the public transport just isn't a priority for this area because no one of significant power or wealth would ever go there. So I did enjoy all that. I think Sylvester Stallone has the occasional moment where he displays like this anguish and this sadness that Rocky feels. And because most of the time his acting didn't make me feel a great deal, these moments really stood out and were quite impactful. I think a lot of the boxing and the training elements are really, really good and really nicely shot. And the end fight, that is the climax of the film. I really enjoyed that, and that really drew me in. It's really high energy, it's really loud, it's engaging. Like, I'm not a boxing fan at all, really, but I was so drawn in, and it was such a great way to end the film. Like, you've got the crowds there going wild, you've got the teams of the two boxers sort of sitting ringside. It's almost like you can feel the sweat pouring off them. They look battered. One question I did have for you, actually, and I don't know if you know this, does Sylvester Stallone, does he actually box? Like, are they actually boxing?
So the guy who plays the heavyweight champion, he's called Antonio Tarver. He was a boxer. I don't think he is anymore.
Right.
I think he might have had a couple of belts even when he did this, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to Google it. But he definitely was an accomplished boxer. And yeah, as far as I know, Stallone was a at least an amateur boxer. Like even if I
Right.
don't know how much he boxed, but he was definitely a boxer to an amateur sort of hobbyist level. And I mean, like you say, it shows in that last fight. It's so well
You
choreographed.
feel it. You
Yeah,
definitely feel
you're
it.
not watching that going, well, this is a film.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Uh-huh.
do
You
you know
could
what I
be
mean?
watching you could be
Yeah,
watching a boxing match.
yeah.
Like, it felt really real, and it felt like that they were actually boxing. So then I started thinking, oh, well, is the allure of the Rocky films that they are actually boxing sort of on this set or on stage sort of thing? But that's probably not accurate, because that would be very unsafe. And I suppose just finally as well, it feels like a bit of a passion project for Sylvester Stallone. So, like you say, he had those first 5 films, and I'm not too sure of the time scale of kind of when they came out and what gaps there sort of were in between one another. But for me, it sort of felt like obviously he'd got a bit older, and he just felt like he had one more to give. Like he wanted to wrap up the story, he wanted to end it, and it ends really well, I think, because he doesn't win, but he doesn't get knocked out. And that just seems to be his goal, doesn't it? And it's really close, because I think what is it they do? They have to count up the punches.
Points,
and then
yeah.
that's,
So if one of them doesn't knock the other one out and it goes the full 12 rounds, or the referee doesn't call the fight, then there's judges and they do points. So he loses the fight on points. But like you say, that's another thing I like, actually, is that he doesn't win. So yes, it's ridiculous, but it's not like he wins and he's a heavyweight champion of the world. I mean, it's an exhibition fight, but he's not suddenly heavyweight champion of the world when he's 60 or whatever. So it's all about just being the best you can be and giving all you've got and getting up when you're knocked down and all that sort of stuff.
It, isn't it? It's about the getting up. It's about always getting up. And so I quite liked that was how they ended it, because it obviously would have been so easy to just get him to knock out the guy and stuff, and for it to be this glorious thing. But it isn't, and it shows, I guess maybe it shows, I haven't seen the other films, so I don't know, but maybe like a bit of growth from his end, where he's just, no, I just want to know that I did the best that I can, and it doesn't matter if I win. But I suppose not getting knocked out is quite a feat in itself, especially when you're up against the current best, right?
Alice, it ain't about how hard you can hit.
Ooh,
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Beautiful, man. Oh, it's beautiful. Did you just make that up on the spot?
Beautiful. If I made it up, you mean I quoted the film directly?
We'll move on now then to talking about anything that we didn't like about the film, or anything that we would change. So, Josh, where's your head at with this? Was it all just a knockout for you?
No, it's not. It's not perfect. We always try and be balanced. I don't have loads to say, and I'm guessing that you do. So
that idea.
So I suppose there's 2 things. The first thing is, it's absolutely ridiculous. The idea is absolutely ridiculous, and it does stray into the ridiculous. But then also, cinema's cinema, and there's more ridiculous ideas than this knocking about. So I do think,
of course,
I definitely think there's probably a point to say, which is that you could be taken out by going, that's fucking stupid. There's no way that would happen. I even know that I think some fans raised with Stallone that I think it's the 5th Rocky, which is one of the ones I haven't seen, which is generally accepted, I believe, to be the worst.
Okay.
And Stallone's least favourite, I want to say, but I might be wrong.
Really?
That he is told by a doctor in the 5th one he can't fight anymore otherwise, because of repeated trauma and all that. So then in this, the fans now, like, so that's quite a lot longer after the 5th Rocky film. I'm not sure how, but it's coming up to like 20 years or something like that, maybe even more. And obviously now we've got the internet, so straight the fans are fans straight away. Well, if he couldn't fight, how are you making another film? And he just turned around. He just turned around and went like, well, medical science comes on, and etc. etc. So
yeah, I took some pills, all right.
Yeah,
I've got insurance.
It's a fucking film.
It's a fucking film, lads. Calm down, calm down.
And I suppose the other side of it, and this is something I did notice, which, again, I have a lot of affection in the film, but I don't think you can deny that it does stray into the cheesy at times. Now, that is what you want from Rocky films. Like, I do think if you're a fan of the Rocky films, that it's in most of them, big sort of... So that is the bit with the anniversary of his wife at the start, and it's very sad, but it's also a little bit cheesy. And then there's about 3 or 4 big speeches that are sort of like, one's to the boxing board when he wants to get his boxing license, one's to his son, and it's all like, it's like what I said to you, it's all like
brimming with monologues,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
like
there's a lot of
for Sylvester.
A lot of monologues, and that is a Rocky film. That's almost a trademark of the Rocky films. So there is a lot of
Right,
it ain't over till it's over. It's about how hard you can hit. Who can tell me I'm going to be something I'm going to be? There's one speech to the boxing ball, but he seems to just going, I want to be something I'm going to be. When am I going to be? Like that. And I still am like, what? What's your point?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a bit cheesy, and I'm thinking you might say a similar thing to me, but hit me with it. I want to know. You've got me on the ropes. You've got me on the ropes.
Give
Are you
you my
gonna?
best right hook.
You're gonna knock me out.
So the script is really bad, in my opinion. The dialogue between the characters is really bad. So there's very little to no depth. There's no nuance. There's no building up the characters using insinuation or reading between the lines. It's not funny and it's not charming and it's not that emotionally engaging. So I was kind of like, where do I put my brain? Where do I put my heart? Like, I just wasn't sure how to absorb it. At one point, Rocky says, it's amazing. You were a kid and now you have a kid. It's amazing. And there was so much of that sort of thing going on. And it felt like I was watching a high school production at times. And the first conversation that we see Rocky have with his son, like, it's so awkward and cringy. And I just didn't know how to absorb any of it. Some of the moments that I think were meant to be emotionally heavy came across as really cheesy, like you said, which wasn't helped by a seriously cheesy score. So the two of these things together reminded me of Team America. So like it was taking the piss, right? So it was like, I promise I will never die and Pearl Harbor sucks and I miss you. It all just kind of felt like that to me. So I wasn't really able to take it seriously for the most part. And there were flashbacks used, which again, so sticking with Matt and Trey, reminded me of some of them that they use in South Park. So do you remember when we did the Green Lantern and there's flashbacks in there that were so cheesy and kind of so cringy that it reminded me of a South Park episode? Well, this took me right back there as well. So again, it was just hard for me to take it seriously and for me to find any strong emotional connection to Rocky. And there were just some really weird things going on with some of the characters. Like, we sort of half get to know Marie's kid's steps, but then that just kind of didn't go anywhere. And then he suddenly seems to be a part of Rocky's crew and went to the press conference with him and then was ringside at his fights. And I was like, hang on, like, how did this develop into that? Like, I just didn't see enough. There wasn't enough relationship development and just not enough depth for me. And then you've got Paulie, who's his trainer, right, who is a dickhead. And then he gets fired and the film plays it out as if you're meant to feel sorry for him. And I just didn't give a shit because I didn't like the guy at all. So it kind of just felt like it was 90 minutes of things happening so that we could get to the end and watch the fight, right? So it's like, oh, well, Paulie needs to get fired so he becomes his coach again. Or he needs to meet this woman. So, we've got a woman to be at ringside going, go, Rocky, and all this sort of thing. And the whole thing just kind of felt really forced and unnatural. And I just didn't come away from it feeling much except for confusion just about what I'd seen. So I was trying to think as well, are the other films like this? And maybe I'm just missing something. So like, if you've seen the other films and you've built that relationship with that character, is it different? Obviously, you had a different experience because you saw it when you were young, and I totally get that. Listen, I love some absolute shite because I saw it when I was a kid. So I do get it. And it is, you can't deny that. And it is a very powerful force. So I just wonder if maybe for fans of Rocky, for fans of that character, for fans of these films, if it is a different experience. But for me, watching it, I almost couldn't believe how bad it was, and I didn't want.
Wow.
I know. It was just like,
couldn't believe how bad it was.
Just the way the way it was written and the script, I was just so confused, and I was just like, did no one tell Sylvester? Like, did no one say, listen, we're going to get you an assistant writer, or, we're going to get some guys in to help you write it because we love the idea, we love the concept, but we just need to refine it a little bit, give these characters some depth, make sure the story makes sense so that we get from A to B to C in a logical fashion, and that everyone's sort of following why certain things are happening. And it just felt like all that was missing. And it was just kind of like, no, he's gonna start boxing again, and he's gonna try and get a license, and then he's gonna meet a girl, and then he's gonna have a kind of stepson relationship, and then his son's gonna come back into his life. Because like, it's him and his son as well don't really seem to have a good relationship. And then his son basically quits his like what looks like a high-paying and powerful job just to spend time with him and kind of dick around with him. And I was just like, I just don't buy that. You haven't built up this relationship enough for me to think that the son would do that. So that's my verdict, Josh. And I do apologise, but what do you think about some of the things I've said there? Which bits are harsh and which bits can you sort of see where I'm coming from?
I think you're just fucking wrong.
I think you just fucking fuck off. I think you better watch out next time I see you.
No. Do you know what? You know, I think some of the stuff you said there is not without, you know, some of the stuff you make is really good points. The Paulie thing, I thought he's a bell end.
He's like a dickhead. Some of the stuff
he's like
says
he's outdated. He's got prejudice. He's all these sorts of things. I think that's probably where the film does fall down, which is you probably have a bit of affection for Paulie if you've seen all the other films.
If you've seen the build-up,
did you get that Paulie was Adrienne's brother?
No, I didn't get that.
So
at all.
it's not clear, is it? So there probably is an element of it that maybe you get more out of it having seen the other Rocky films from an emotional point of view, because then that informs the other stuff, which is the way it's written. I completely understand what you're saying about how cheesy it is. That's sort of what you're getting with Rocky. That's like saying I suppose it's a little bit like, there's too much CGI in a Marvel film.
Okay, right.
And there are people who say that. Do you know what I mean? There's plenty of people who go, at the end of Marvel, it was just big CGI blobfest fight, and it's like, well, yeah, that is what. That's what it is. That is what it is.
Yeah,
so I do think I think you're not wrong. It's just a difference of opinion. That I think it depends what you want from a film. So I completely get what you're saying. It is cheesy. I said myself it was cheesy, but I think you have to accept that's sort of what you're getting with a Rocky film. I do get that. I'd never really noticed the point you made before about the fact that the steps thing sort of goes away. You're absolutely right. I'd never noticed that before. There's a little subplot, like, because it's sort of hinted, isn't it? Like, he's getting in with a shitty crowd and Rocky's going to turn his life around. And then really you get nothing. He meets him, he goes and finds a dog with him. And before you know it, he's at his ringside.
Yeah, it's like this. It's these sort of seeds of ideas that you think are maybe going to pay off later. And they didn't. It was just kind of like, we need to put this bit in, we've got to have him having a conversation with a younger person, so he can be a role model and have him look up to him, but it just wasn't developed enough and didn't go far enough for me, I think. But is it just about the boxing, right? And
and that's the other thing.
It's about that spectacle, isn't it? Which they did really well.
Yeah, the boxing's really good, and I do get that. I do also think you could definitely see this and go, this is all just building towards the boxing, the boxing at the end. So I mean, and back to the thing about Stallone, Stallone did write the original Rocky. This isn't like a Superman 4 type situation where an actor has been associated with a role to a point where they've taken over it and they write it now. Rocky is Stallone's creation, so he's still writing it. Well, he's still written it at this point. He had some input into the Creed films more recently where Rocky is in them as well. So no, I completely get what you mean. I suppose it is just that this is what a Rocky film is really, but I can completely get if you went, this is overly written, overly cheesy, overly emotionally manipulative, sort of, masculine bollocks. Do you know what I mean? I can get how you think that. It's just that I have a real affection for it.
We'll move on then to talking about the critical reception, which I am very interested to hear all about. So I haven't seen this, Josh. How do
you think it did?
I mean, I can't imagine. I don't know. People like Sylvester, and I wonder if critics like Sylvester
and Rocky. People do like Rocky.
People
films
do like
well.
Rocky.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it got like a high 5 into maybe a 6. So I reckon it probably got a 5.9.
A 5.9.
I wouldn't give it that. I'd give it quite a bit lower.
Go on. What would you give it?
I'm trying to think of some of the worst films.
I thought you were going to say, I'm trying to think of what's less than 0.
What's
really bad?
-4. I would probably give it. I'd sit. It would have to come under a 5, I think. Like below
what? Go on.
A 5.
Go on. Like, how low would you go with it? Are we going 2?
4.5.
No. Okay. So that's not. It's not the worst in the world, but
definitely not the worst.
We've had some
real poor films on this podcast, Josh.
That might be the worst you've ever scored one of my choices, though.
Well, because I do.
I'm trying to
I
think
wonder
if
if
you-
I am
if you-
quite generous because
Yeah.
I am actively trying to find the good in
Yes,
things, right?
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, oh yeah, maybe this is a bit naff, but it's really well written, or
Yeah.
oh yeah, maybe I didn't like the story, but the acting was really good, sort of thing. But with this, it didn't deliver on a few too many fronts for
Yeah.
me. So I would probably give it a 4.5 or a 45, I reckon.
And sometimes,
What would you give it?
sometimes it's just not for you, is it?
I
Yeah.
think that's all this is, Josh, and that is a perfectly fine and acceptable thing. And please do keep inviting me back. Hopefully, this isn't this could be the last episode, guys.
What would I give it?
What would you give it?
So I would probably say this is a solid 8. Which is such a difference to your score.
Really?
Yeah.
Would you really? Genuinely?
But then a lot of that is informed by my affection. So, all
totally
right.
get that.
Let-
Listen, mate, I am obsessed with Ewoks, The Battle for Endor, like full on obsessed. And I know that's not a good film. So I get it. I am with you. Don't worry.
Right. Let's look at the critical reception then. So before we go on, this is not underseen. I think it made more than its budget back multiple times over.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty big hit because people like Rocky. Rocky had been away from the cinema.
Yeah.
He'd been away from the cinema for a long time, so it's like anything in it. Quite often that drags people right back into the cinema. How did it do critically? I'm fucking dreading this. Right, at the time of recording on IMDb, it gets 7.1 out of 10.
Wow.
At the time of recording on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience give it 76%.
Wow.
And the critics give it 77%. That averages out at 74%.
What?
So Alice, who gave this 4.5.
What?
How do you feel about that?
Film with the critics watching. Like how?
So
what did the critics give it? 77%.
It's underseen. What we're talking about next week.
That's that is mad. I'm so confused. Maybe
Did you watch the right film?
I don't know, man.
You didn't watch Rocky. You didn't watch Rocky 5, did you?
I don't think so. So I guess maybe as a critic, if you're watching it after you've seen the other Rockies, maybe it's something about this like one last hurrah thing that people quite like. But when I think about like something like In the Heart of the Sea that got way less than that, which I think is a fantastic film, like that I'm puzzled more than anything, Josh. I'll be honest. This has got to be the most confused I think I've ever been.
So we're split then, aren't we? We're split.
That's really weird. That's so weird.
I say it's slightly underrated. I say it's slightly underrated, and you say it's massively overrated.
Massively overrated.
So
it's
let's
like 2 times overrated.
we can't come to a decision, so you know what that means. We're gonna have to put it to the listeners.
Put it to the listeners. Get our massive poll out, guys. Go on.
Fucking 4.5.
Like
I can't
that's
believe,
me being generous.
like
as well,
a 3-point difference in our
that's
scores.
Crazy. I don't think I've ever. That's got to be a first for the podcast.
I think it might be.
So low like that. Yeah. Wow. There we go. So there we go, listeners. This is for you to decide. We are at a stalemate, and there's no way that I'm budging on that. So.
Okay, there we go. Another episode in the bag. Split decision. We'll put it to the listeners. 4.5, Alice. Fucking hell.
I'm sorry. I'm not even sorry, man. I'm not even sorry.
So we'll put it to you. You can decide. Is Rocky Balboa underrated? I think it is, and Alice is, of course, wrong. We will be back next week with another episode. It is, in fact, our Halloween special. So tune in.
Are ya?
Tune in next week when we'll be back with a guest for a Halloween special. We look forward to you hearing it. In the meantime, if you'd like to get in touch with us, it's filmsandthatpod@gmail.com. We're on all the social medias. Just search for Just Films and That on all the social medias, and you'll find us. I'll tell you where else you'll find us, as well as on the television.
Oh, you will indeed. Every Friday evening from 6 p.m, we are on the local TV network talking about all our favourite underrated and underseen films. We may even do...
Is this going to come on there?
We may even do an episode on Rocky Balboa in due course. Actually, I think we definitely must. I can't wait for that one. I'm going to fucking turn it apart. No, I'm only joking. Listen, there was some stuff that I enjoyed in there.
I'm sorry, anyway. Sly. I'm so sorry about this.
I know, he's an icon as well, man. Fucking hell, I hope you know there is this. But yes, as I was saying, we're on the local TV network every Friday from 6 p.m. So if you live in Birmingham, Bristol, Leeds, Liverpool, or the northeast of England, you can find us on Channel 7 on Freeview. Or if you live in North Wales or South Wales, you can find us on Channel 8 on Freeview. Or if you have Sky and you live anywhere in the country, you can find us on Channel 188. And that is every Friday from 6 p.m. That's Just Films and That on the local TV network.
Yes, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next week. Cheerio!
Bye.